So the next speaker is Wesley Berry, who comes from Tenet, with whom Sandren forms the SA Endren. Wesley is going to be speaking about empowering research and education, an introduction to Tenet's trust and identity services. Round of applause for Wesley.
That one is. Awesome.
Is this a new way?
Cool, thank you. So I think I'm going to put my timer on quickly just to manage time here. Give me a second. Let's do that. Cool. So thank you. So as mentioned, I'm Wesley Berry and I work for Tenet, South Africa. And my talk is going to be not about network so much, but more about trust and identity services. And those services speak directly to researchers. And so researchers benefit the most out of these services. And as you can see, it's sort of an introduction. If you are an IT person at the university, you probably know about the services or you even administrate some of the services. But it's a welcome introduction, and for researchers, it's stuff that you might have known already or that you're not aware of. So here goes. So as mentioned previously, Tenet forms part of the SA NRN, and we work along SANREN. From the SANREN part, it's a sort of government approach down, government initiative to cyber infrastructure and the like, whereas Tenet operates under the auspices of universities, so we speak directly to universities and we provide IT network solutions to the universities. Right. Good. Let's see if this thing is sliding here. Okay. So in this talk, I want to try and answer 3 questions, and those are going to attach to 3 services over there. So that is, how are you connecting to the things that you need access to? How are you accessing your research works and other academic tools? And are you receiving the right credit and attribution for your research? So let's talk about connectivity first. So we all know that's a campus, right? That's a university. That particular one is actually a couple of kilometers away, not too far away from here. That's in MMU, right? We know that's a campus. We know that teaching and learning takes place over there, and that's traditionally how it goes. But we also know that's a campus also. That's as much as a university as the other one over there. And the same is, that's also a university as well, right? And so in this instance, teaching and learning takes place wherever there's access to a device, basically. So we need to find ways to get internet to students outside of campus, right? And one of the best ways to do is with Ediroam. So everybody's spoken about Ediroam already. You know what Ediroam does. It's a roaming service developed for international research education community. And it allows students, researchers, and staff from particular institutions to obtain internet connectivity across campus and when visiting other participating institutions simply by opening up your laptop. Now, the important bit here is that Ediroam started out as being the important line there is connecting to other participating institutions. And that's how Ediroam started out, but there's growth in that, right? So this means that in the same way that a campus can be anything. Internet should be the internet should be anywhere where research takes place. And so we started looking at with some particular service providers to be able to look at putting Ethereum into places where students are going to be that are not on campus, right? And so if you look at that first instance over there, Ethereum was installed, in this example, was installed in the City of Cape Town's public libraries. Now that initiative took place in 2019, and at the time it sort of grew slowly, but it became a very particular thing when we went into lockdown, and we were then obviously locked down, but then there was a time when we were then allowed to move around, and campus was still closed. But the research still needed to take place, teaching and learning still needed to take place, and so students who are not able to travel to campus were then able to go to one of these public libraries and still do work. So that was a good initiative. Initiative number 2 was trying to install Ethereum into hospitals. And if you know that most medical students and staff actually do most of their teaching and learning inside of a hospital. And so that meant that they needed internet access in the hospital. And so this initiative was driven by one of our universities in Cape Town, Stellenbosch University, where they saw the need to put Ethereum into a place where the students are learning. So that was another example of that. And then lastly, there was an initiative to roll out Ethereum into airports because students travel, so students don't always stay in the same place that they work. So there's travel involved, and so having Ethereum in places where they do transit is very important, and so that was quite a good initiative as well. And so you'll see, let me just go back to the other slide, sorry. You'll see that these are some initiatives that have taken place, but there is much more that we can do here. And these initiatives are not about Tenet doing stuff. Tenet likes to help those institutions do these things. But if there are instances where this community feels that they need Ethereum in certain places, so let's say, for example, like a research facility, or any other place where students are doing their work, this might be a place to consider putting Ethereum in there, and we're welcome to help with that. And then there's just a little map there of Ethereum being available in all those countries, so where you transit, you can have Ethereum. So, yes. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but this is just a flow of how Ethereum works. If you in a participating service provider or university, and you connect at that visiting institution or organization, it just gives you a flow of how it actually connects to your home institution, logs in over there, and comes back, and then gives you access to the internet. Okay, so we've talked about connectivity. Next is I want to talk about access. So if we consider then that is a university, then I would say then that the information that you actually require will probably be also not in this place. It will probably be in some way like that, right? And so you have to look at other ways of getting students access into those information that they need, or access to the resources that they need, which is different to on-campus access. So that's where an identity federation comes involved there, and that, as you probably know, we operate the South African Identity Federation, Sapphire, and it's a national academic identity federation for the African research and education community, and it allows you to log in with your own university credentials into services that are outside of the university and provided by third-party providers. So there's a quick workflow of how that works, similar to what Idram does. If you look on the left-hand side over there, a user logs into a system, login request gets sent back to the home institution where they log into that service, and then that information where it gives a trigger to say they've got access to that service and gets back to the third-party service, and the student can log in. So these are some examples of things that students typically log into over there. Most of these are driven by libraries in universities. But again, this is one of those things where in the scientific world, there might be instances where there are resources that students or researchers need to log into. That is also a welcome change, and we can actually get that to work. So please do come speak to us about that. So lastly, I want to speak about attributions. And so you'll see over there, that represents a lot of people over there, right? And so what this actually means is that research happens every day. Everyone does research, right? How do we distinguish one researcher from another researcher? How does that researcher get the proper accreditation for the work that they do and for the time that they spent on services or on works that they've done? So lastly, that is ORCID. ORCID can help with that, right? So why I'm mentioning ORCID here is because TENET also operates the South African ORCID Consortium, and we provide local ORCID support for the South African community. And so for those who don't know what ORCID is a free, unique, persistent identifier for individuals to use as they engage with research, scholarship, and innovation activities. And ORCID ID looks like that. It's a 16-digit persistent identifier used to link your research and your publication output, and it's to help you distinguish yourself from different researchers and to distinguish your name so that you make sure that you are credited for the right works that you've done. It also allows you to not spend so much time inputting information to other systems, because a system can actually pull that information across from an ORCID record into another system. So with an ORCID ID, you also get an ORCID record, and inside that ORCID record, you'll see there is a list of fields over there, which you can see contains employment information, works information, you can put your publications in there, and so you can build up an academic CV based on the information that you know. So I've highlighted this particular thing because in this community, researchers tend to use a lot of resources. So let's look at HPC, let's look at the research facilities that they use, we're looking at specific equipment that they use, and sometimes these things are not documented properly. So the time that the researcher uses on the systems, the amount of resources they used, and what systems and facilities they used are quite important for funding purposes, basically, because funders ask these things, and things like data management plans as well are requesting information about this. So tracking these things can be quite important. In terms of ORCID, what ORCID allows you to do is you can actually connect this to a system that then adds this information into the ORCID record. I've talked about pulling information into the ORCID record. And so that's just a simple layout of what it does over there. And so you can see that employee can add information to it, and that same information can then be pulled from a funder. That same information can be pulled from a publisher. In the same way, an employee can pull different publication information from past works from the researcher. So that's just a nice workflow of how that happens. If you want to be more technical, that's the basic workflow of what a researcher does. They will be requested to log into a system over there. It will allow them to authorize that system, to give that system permission to write information into the researcher's ORCID record. And once that is done, the system actually has that, there's a token exchange that happens, and the system has that information that then allows that communication to happen with the ORCID API. That is quite technically, there's a lot of technical stuff that happens in the background over there, and it requires a lot of technical knowledge from university. And so we've noted that there's quite a lot of barriers for university to get past this. And what we've developed was a sort of an in-house system that can sort of control that allows a university to do this without building a system on their own. So the system you see, what you see there in front of you is called Intembeko. It's an ORCID hub, and it allows the communication then to take place. So you can see on the right hand, I don't know if you can see, it's too small, but on the right hand side over there, a researcher logs into it. On the left hand side, an organization gets permission to do that. And then the result is that that organization can then add information, anything related to education, employment, funding, works, and peer reviews, and also other resources. So there's just a quick example of using both ORCID and Sapphire in this example. So this is the ORCID hub, but it logs in via Sapphire. So that's an example of a tool that uses Sapphire. And it logs in, and at this point, it's going to ask me over there. So I am logged into the ORCID hub, and it's asking me to authorize my, it's asking me to link my ORCID record to the system. And once I've done that, once I authorize it over there, part of that process of Sapphire working with Intembeko is it allows then the information to automatically be written, my employment information automatically written into the ORCID record. Now that's the first start. Additionally to that, again, administrators of a system could actually then add other works and other information into the ORCID record. Okay, so that's just, I'm just going to go through that quickly, but that's just an email about adding affiliation into the record. And this is just an example of another university. You can see over there the source is the University of Pretoria, and they've also used the hub, and they've added, like this is just somebody's works that they've added to it. And since they've used the ORCID hub, they have actually increased the amount of works and publications put in through ORCID records. So that's just an example of that. Thank you. So I don't know if there's any questions. That's my time.
I assume there are no questions for Barry.
No,
Are you happy? Cool. Okay.
they're all welcome to speak to me. My email address is there.